In a world filled with information, where do you turn to get straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Lock it in to the longest running financial talk show in Arkansas and let us help you build the bridge between information and application. Real financial change begins right here, and it starts with you.
It's showtime! Woo!
Hi, everybody. On today's show, we say it all the time, your retirement should be more. But more what? We'll dive into that, plus a chance to get more out of your retirement for no cost.
This is the Get Ready for the Future show.
Happy Wednesday and welcome in to the Get Ready for the Future show, streaming on Facebook Live and on YouTube. My name is Scott Inman. Good to have you with us. John Shrewsbury, Janet Walker with me as always as we get set to talk about your money, your retirement, and how your retirement should be more. But first, we are excited to see all of the changes happening as we are starting to open Arkansas back up.
Yes.
We are seeing the gyms are back open, and today hair salons and other services are scheduled to be able to be open, of course, with changes, with precautions, with limitations. Churches, the restrictions on churches now have been loosened a little bit as well, and large indoor venues are even coming down the pike. So there is a lot more positivity with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic than there has been in recent weeks, and we are excited as well to begin opening our offices up. We did that on Monday.
Yes.
It is still voluntary for both clients and for team members. We know some of our team members have certain situations where they still need to be at home, and we understand, too, that clients may or may not feel comfortable meeting in the office at this time. I've talked to a couple. We've scheduled a couple of appointments, and I think my experience has been they are ready. They want to know what our precautions are. They want to know what we're doing, what they are expected to do coming in. But I think they're ready to get out and meet as well.
I think so as well, and we certainly want to meet you wherever you are. It doesn't matter where you are as far as staying home or coming into the office. If you have a need to deal with your retirement, your investments, your money, we want to meet you where you need to be. And so we've got the facilities and the operations to obviously have cleanliness in our offices and be sure that we are disinfecting after each appointment, before each appointment, and that type of thing. But we also have the technology to meet you where you are at home. And so we have that ability, Janet. We've done a lot of that in terms of virtual meetings, we will call them, over the last, let's say, 3-4 weeks or so. We've gotten pretty good at that. We've kind of stumbled forward, but we did stumble forward. We were forward with it anyway. And I think it's really something that will be part of the dynamic for some time to come.
Yeah, I do think that it will be part of our new normal going forward. I want to talk about, people coming into the office. You were talking about most people seem to be just ready. Troy and I had an experience earlier this week where a couple came in and they brought their adult daughter, and it wasn't so she could learn everything. It was because she wanted to get out of the house. That she had been home for so long, and so she just wanted to get out, and so she was excited to just be there for that reason. And speaking of being excited to be back to work, if you are not a regular follower of us on Facebook, you need to go and find a celebratory dance that John and I did earlier this week. It's interesting, I'll say that.
Let's put some context on this for just a second.
Well, hang on. Let me tell people.
I've seen it, but haven't asked the story, so I'm looking forward to this.
Let me tell people how to find it first, because if you're not a regular follower, then you haven't seen this. It is absolutely the most commented on post that we've ever had, so you need to go and check this out. So if you'll just go to Facebook and search for Gen Wealth Financial Advisors, and this was posted on Monday of this week for us to celebrate coming back to work.
So, technology.
No elaboration on that. I want to know the story.
Well, technology has this way of distorting the truth. Okay, so let's be sure that you clearly understand.
Well, I think we understand. Yeah,
that there is a.
If you see the video,
there's a big
distortion.
Watch it on your phone. We look way better on a smaller screen than we do on a big one.
So there's this. I don't know. There's this. I don't even know what you call it. There's this.
We remember the elves dancing.
Yeah, there's this evil thing that
yeah.
takes your body and makes you look like that you're dancing some weird dance. It's not even John Travolta-esque. It's way worse than that.
When I saw yours, I thought it was Chad Morris.
What?
Don't you? Have you not seen the video with Chad Morris dancing?
Yes, I forget what that was called.
It was a locker room dance.
Yeah, some locker room dance after they beat some no-name team and he got excited about it.
Yes.
Well, this isn't it. This is actually way better than that. So anyway,
It's worth checking out.
Words cannot describe exactly what it looks like. You just have to go to Facebook and check it out. And I was lured into this on a dare.
By your daughter, who handles our social media.
Yeah, so she was telling me about it, and she said, okay, I won't post this if Janet doesn't do it. And so I was thinking, there's just no way Janet will ever do that. Well,
I did.
guess what?
I did.
So anyway.
It was fun.
There we are.
Go check it out.
And then the conspiracy just took off there because there were people all over the place sharing it, and I can't track down all the people that have been involved in this and wreak my revenge on them.
Yeah.
But it is coming in one way or the other. I can assure you.
Well, think about all the clients that you've met with over the years. They have never seen either of you in that way.
Yeah, we've lost all credibility with it.
I can't believe that you spilled the beans that it was, technology that helped us, because there are a lot of people who legit thought it was real.
Anybody who knows me knows I don't move that well.
All right, so check out the happy dance that John and Janet provided for us all on the Facebook page.
Now that we've burned 6 minutes and 29 seconds of our life that we won't ever get back on that subject, let's move on.
All right, well, so here's the transition. So a great opportunity for people to either schedule an appointment in office or through video conferencing. The reason being, if you are 55 and older, we want to remind you once again that we are waiving our financial planning fees through June 30th. This is a value of somewhere between $500 and $1,500 that we are waiving during this pandemic for those of you that are nearing retirement. If you are married, only one of the spouses needs to be 55 and older to qualify. And the reason we set it at 55 is really because we know that's really where you're entering the retirement red zone, as we call it, which is 10 years or less from retirement. And we know that this pandemic has everyone tightening their financial belts. So it's a great opportunity now, if you are 55 and older, to get a financial plan together for your retirement, whether it is remotely through video conferencing or in our offices at GenWealth. You can call 501-653-7355 or email us info@getreadyforthefuture.com and set that appointment. There is no cost here. And I will say this, we've called back some folks that were still thinking about it, that had come in before the pandemic and hadn't really decided yet, and told them, so now that we've entered this time frame and you had not decided, we waived that fee for them as well. So It's a great opportunity if you have been in a GenWealth office and had never made the decision, whether it was last month or last year, and you're 55 and older, to come in and take advantage of this opportunity.
Scott, let me make a point about why this is such a big deal to do this now. First of all, when you think about where we are with this pandemic, we still do not know how the markets are going to react. We don't know what is coming down the pike as far as maybe an influx of new cases or anything of that nature. We still don't know the effect of all of the stimulus that the government has done for our benefit to keep the cash flow going. But what economic effect does that have? And it's created a lot of uncertainty. And one of the things that I think most people crave in their finances of any stretch, especially in retirement, is certainty. And so doing a financial plan gives you some degree of control, some degree of focus on what's going on with your financial life and how you're going to safely navigate through these uncertain times. We do have uncertain times, as we've all recognized through this pandemic. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And this is an opportunity for you to actually take control and exert your control on things that you do have control of. So give us a call at 501-653-7355 to take advantage of that opportunity.
As we mentioned in the open, your retirement should be more. We say it all the time, and it is the genesis and title of John and Janet's book. But more what? What are we talking about when we say your retirement should be more? We're going to dive into that in today's show. It's time for our first break. We'll be right back. More of the Get Ready for the Future show right after this.
At Gen Wealth, one of our standards is that we value good communication. One of my favorite quotes about good communication is from George Bernard Shaw. He said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. If you ever doubt that, come to my house, listen to my 16-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter having a conversation and see what happens, because they will walk away with completely different understandings of the conversation that has occurred." It happens every time. It's okay, they're still learning communication. But here at Gen Wealth, we believe that that's something you need to experience every time you walk in our door, that you need to feel understood, that you need to feel listened to. So you'll see a change in how we're even communicating. If you're talking about something that's very serious, very personal, you'll even hear a change in our tone of voice, because that's just how good communication is supposed to be. But it also means that we can feed back to you what you've shared with us, just so you know that we're listening. We value good communication.
From the Gen Wealth Radio Network studios, we're back with more of the Get Ready for the Future show.
On today's program, how to harness the power of more in your retirement. And we talk all the time about the importance of building a plan, but what should be in that plan? What should it create for you? And a couple of years ago, John and Janet began writing a book, and it is entitled Your Retirement Should Be More. And in fact, we're going to give away a copy of that on today's program a little bit later on, so you'll want to continue to stay tuned for that. But each chapter, if you open up the table of contents, each chapter begins with more something. And we're going to focus on a few of those today. And in this segment, we're going to talk about more dependable. Your retirement plan should be more dependable. So exactly what do we mean by that? Well, we want to go kind of back in time to set the table for this discussion. A couple of weeks ago, we were honored to have on the Get Ready for the Future show Dr. Wade Pfau. Dr. Pfau is one of the most renowned and influential thought leaders when it comes to retirement, and more specifically, retirement income. You hear us talk about that on this program all the time, too. Don't focus on your asset level or your account value first. First, you need to focus on developing what your income needs to look like in retirement. And that's what Dr. Pfau does. He is on the academic side of this. He doesn't meet with clients. He works with advisors, and he is in the academic side of the math and science behind what works in retirement and what doesn't when it comes to retirement income. And he had a great moment where he talked in that interview about talking to us about the, I guess you would say, the traditional way that a financial advisor operates for their clients, and that is investment management or wealth management, just focusing solely on the investments. And he said if you're relying solely on an investment manager to get you through retirement, you're basing your retirement on luck rather than safety. His words, listen.
There's still many financial advisors who really view themselves as investment managers. And so their job is to put together a portfolio for their clients. And that's the end of the story. And pre-retirement, I don't think that ever made sense, but at least it was a little more justifiable because, well, you're really just trying to grow the pot of assets for future use. But once people get to retirement, that investment style approach doesn't really apply anymore because people now have to fund distributions. They have to spend over their retirements. And there's a whole new set of risks that we talked about these risks already, that not knowing how long the money needs to last and how market volatility, what we talked about with that retirement red zone, market volatility has a bigger impact when you're retired. And so you have to think about it differently than just a traditional investment portfolio. And that's where advisors who haven't really been thinking about retirement income as something distinct from traditional wealth management are really missing the boat and aren't going to be able to help their clients achieve successful retirement outcomes unless you just get lucky with the good market returns. But
now think about that as he talks about in pre-retirement when you're trying to accumulate, that works. The focus is on investments because you are trying to grow your assets. But as you drift into that retirement red zone, as he talked about there, and we've already talked about in the first segment, inside of 10 years from your projected retirement date, the game changes. You have to prepare your assets for distribution rather than accumulation. And he says, unless you get lucky, the traditional model doesn't work.
Scott, we are all geeks when it comes to retirement income planning, and geeks hang out with geeks. And so I'm going to throw out a name. Obviously, most people don't know Dr. Wade Pfau. It's not a household name. I'm going to give you another one. David Macchia. He is the owner of a company called Wealth2K, which essentially is the software that we use that drives a part of the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. David Macchia wrote a book called The Lucky Retiree. And I want you to think about that. Do you want your retirement based on luck, or do you want your retirement based on certainty or dependability, as we're talking about here in this chapter in the book? And Janet, what he means in that book that he wrote, The Lucky Retiree, is he said there's a certain percentage of people that are just going to be lucky in retirement not because they were born on the right day or whatever, but because they retired at the right time.
Right.
Because they retired in market conditions that allowed their retirement to overcome the withdrawal rates and all of the challenges that are out there as far as retirement are concerned.
We've seen studies over the years about people who retired as short as, just 2 or 3 weeks apart, and the results of their retirement were tremendously different because they were dependent upon the returns of the market. Here's the point. When we talk about, you have to be lucky to do this the traditional way if you don't have a focus on retirement income planning. You don't know. You don't know what type of market you're going to get. You don't know whether you're going to get, you were in the market in mid-February and then everything from coronavirus hit and you're down all of a sudden, and that's your early time in retirement. Or maybe you retired right after that and you retired at that low point and you've gotten that jump up since then. Of course, the year's not over. It's a short period of time that we're talking about, but you get the point. Really, within just a few weeks of each other, you can have a tremendously different result in your retirement picture. Mm-hmm. And you can't cast your destiny in retirement to luck. Luck usually doesn't do the right thing for you. You have to be prepared. And so if you think about, all right, how do I do that? You have to be intentional in retirement to prepare a plan that's going to work for you regardless of whether luck works in your favor or against you.
We think we know fairly certainly that we're going to have, as Burt White called it on our webinar the other night, Charlie Brown's T-shirt. Mm-hmm. As far as the market is concerned. Everybody was familiar with Charlie Brown's T-shirt. It's this up and down pattern that's on his T-shirt. That's what's going to happen. It's called volatility. Well, volatility is your friend when you are accumulating money in your 401k plan and things of that nature. Understand that, and please take that to heart, because volatility is your friend. Even though the markets are going down and we've had a setback as far as the markets are concerned, if you are years away from retirement and you're putting money into your 401k plan, volatility is your friend. If you are close to retirement or already in retirement, volatility is your enemy. Volatility is the thing that is the problem that is going to crop up most likely in your retirement program that you have to defend against. And I think you have to just ask yourself, Scott, what probability of retirement income success are you comfortable with? Is it an 80% probability? Is it a 70% probability? Think of it this way. If you left your house today and somebody stopped you at your driveway and said there's only an 80% chance that you're going to get to your destination, would you do it? Mm-mm. Probably not. You'd probably just say, okay, I'll wait and figure this out later or whatever. And maybe you don't have the ability to do that. Maybe you have to go where you are. But you're not going to be very comfortable. It's not going to be a very dependable trip if you are working in even a 70 to 80% chance of retirement success. And for most people, that's where they are if they are taking a systematic withdrawal from their investments. If they don't have a written retirement income plan that deals with this volatility, then you are traveling in that 70 to 80% success ratio, or that success probability. how much of that are you really comfortable with, I think is the key.
Yeah, so a more dependable retirement should not depend on investments. It should not focus on investments. An investment is built to generate an expected or desired rate of return,
Right.
weighed against risk.
Right.
That's what an investment is. That's all an investment is. A plan that would be more dependable in retirement is focused not on a rate of return, but on the desire or achieved outcome. And that outcome is the probability John's talking about. So when you think about more dependable, how do you create that? Well, I think it begins with figuring out what you're going to have from an income perspective in retirement. And this is something that I think is a number that's floating around in your head that you may have thought about, but it is always amazing to me when we sit down for that first appointment with our soon-to-be clients and begin working through the retirement income plan. Many people just don't have, Janet, any really idea of what they're going to need in retirement from an income perspective.
You're correct in that. There are so many times that, you know, the money comes in and the money goes out. I talk about the point in time when we changed many, many years ago from getting paid with a paper check and having to go and deposit it and then track that with your checkbook to everything being electronic. The money comes in, the money goes out, nobody knows where it went, it's just gone. But now, in this time with COVID-19 and so many people having been laid off or having had a reduction in their income, I do think that many people are becoming more aware of how much money they have to have. We've gotten word this week of a lot of people who have had, you know, from going from 100% of whatever they were making down to 90 or 80%. Well, at that point, you begin to find out, all right, how much do we have to live on? And that's really the question that you have to answer in preparing for retirement. Obviously, we want you to have more than what you have to have, but we have to answer that question first. What is your required income? So it's important for you to determine what that number is. Maybe you've never thought about it before. Sit down with your spouse and walk through food, shelter, clothing, transportation. When you think about shelter, include taxes and insurance. Even if your house is already paid for, you still have to maintain that home. So think through those topics and get to a number so that we can walk through the plan with you.
Scott, I was thinking about this whole idea of relying on investments to get you through retirement solely. Investments are important, but relying on investments to get you through retirement is kind of like going and buying a car solely on the type of engine that's in that car. Now, you could get, you know, a V8 super, you know, turbocharged, you know, vehicle, but it might not really do the job that you want it to do. You're probably not going to arrive very comfortably because those things tend to run a little bit hot and a little bit rough and may take you faster than you want to go sometimes and put you in more danger than you really should. And so I think it's a great analogy for people to grab hold of to understand what we're talking about here. You wouldn't go buy a car solely on the engine dynamic. And you shouldn't look at retirement that way either. The retirement part of this is all about the planning, and the planning takes in, yes, investments, but a lot of other things that you need to sit down with an advisor about to talk about how you're going to design that plan specifically for your situation.
Yeah, I think it's important to say the investment is a key part. The investment strategy is a key part, but it can't come first. It can't be the focus first. You have to build the plan out first, and then if you just have investments, how do you know where and how and when you're going to take the income, and how much are you going to take, and is that going to fluctuate, or do you want a consistent monthly income in retirement? Most of the answers to those questions are yes, you want a consistent monthly income. Time for a break. We're going to kind of build this more dependable thought out a little bit more when it comes to your required income. That's next on the Get Ready for the Future show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A game warden noticed how a particular fellow named Sam consistently caught more fish than anyone else. The successful fisherman invited the game warden to come along with him and observe. So the next morning, the two fellows met at the dock and took off in Sam's boat. When they got to the middle of the lake, Sam stopped the boat and the warden sat back to see how it was done. Sam's approach was really simple. He took out a stick of dynamite, lit it, and threw it in the air. The explosion rocked the lake with such a force that dead fish immediately began to surface. Sam took out a net and started scooping them up. Well, you can imagine the reaction of the game warden. When he recovered from the shock of it all, he began yelling at Sam. He said, "Hey, buddy, you can't do this. I'll put you in jail. You'll be paying every fine there is in the book." The game warden was just incredulous. Sam, meantime, just simply set down his net, took out another stick of dynamite. He lit it, tossed it this time in the lap of the game warden with these words: "Are you going to sit there all day complaining, or are you going to fish?" For some of us, the same question could be asked about our retirement. This is John Shrewsbury with Gen Wealth Financial Advisors. Whether it's trying to find the best investment or just worrying about the stock market, a lot of folks seem frozen with retirement indecision, and that very well could lead to an explosion of your own, an explosion of your dreams for a comfortable future. Plan now for your time on the lake or wherever your dreams take you.
A burning question? Email info@getreadyforthefuture.com with your name, location, and question to get a response on the air from the Gen Wealth team. Now, back to the Get Ready for the Future show.
Well, the music, when we come back in, makes me want to dance, but I'm not near as good of a dancer as John and Janet, so I'm going to refrain from that.
John wishes he had.
If you missed the opportunity,
there's still opportunity for layoffs in this pandemic.
Wow, that just got more personal, didn't it, Scott?
It sure did. Okay, let's change the subject in a hurry.
Just kidding, folks.
Yeah, talking about how your retirement should be more, and it is the title of John and Janet's book that they began working on a couple of years ago. We're going to give away 5 copies of this, so it's your opportunity to get a free copy today. We'll tell you at the end of the show how to do that, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. The title of each chapter in this book starts with the word more, and we're talking about more dependable, or we were before the break, and we're going to build that out a little bit more, highlighting how you should focus on income and not your investments or investment returns. First, building out that plan necessitates that you decide how much income you're going to need on a monthly basis, and we call that required income. And figuring that out is the first step in our ready-to-retire process here at Gen Wealth. And once you have that number firmed up, we take a look at the other side of the scale. If you think about this as a scale and balancing out your required income need with your guaranteed income sources in retirement, and guys, that starts for most everybody with Social Security and may include some other sources as well.
Scott, I think about a biblical principle when we start talking about this. The Bible says that only a fool tries to build a tower without counting the cost. Well, you have an income tower that you've got to build. You've got a responsibility to basically replace a paycheck that you've been getting all of your life, and you need to replace that paycheck with guaranteed income to a large extent. You need income to pay the bills, the regular monthly bills that you're going to have to pay regardless of what's going on. We think about that in broad terms, very broad terms, in terms of food, clothing, transportation, shelter, taxes, insurance, all of the must-haves of life. You probably ought to have guaranteed income coming in to meet those needs, because those needs are not going to go away. Now, where you don't need guaranteed income is in your discretionary expenses. You won't have a vacation every month. You won't have trips to go see the grandkids every month. Now, some of you might like to have that, but that's not necessarily a must-have of life. And so you've got to kind of think about that in a different way. And Janet, that's one of the biggest challenges that we have as we begin to have this conversation with folks, is to get them to think in those terms.
Well, they've even got a challenge many times about thinking, okay, I need the same amount of money that I'm making right now, and they think about what their gross income is. Well, you're making contributions to your retirement plan right now, and you're paying a portion, for health insurance, and granted, you'll have health insurance costs in retirement, but if you're talking about age 65, those may be a lower cost than what you're paying right now, because you're paying for a supplement, not the whole policy.
And if you're working right now, I think we've all learned in this shutdown that you wear different clothes to work
Yes.
than you do when you're not working.
Yes, I do think that retirement may require, a few purchases of pajama pants periodically to replace the daily attire that we wear. But that's, you're not going to have.
Speaking of interesting videos,
Yes.
there was business on the top and party on the bottom there, as far as Janet was
Yeah.
concerned in that video.
Okay.
It was staged, but
I would argue that was staged, but
the rest of the time during quarantine, I was not wearing striped pajama pants. I was wearing, just very neutral black or gray pajama pants. So there you go. That was staged.
So back to the income.
Yes.
We talk about required income matching, the guaranteed sources of Social
Yeah.
Security, pensions, and that may or may not keep up with inflation as far as cost of living adjustments. And so you have to have that desired income on top of that not only gives you discretionary income, but also gives you the opportunity for raises. And that's where the investment strategy becomes very important. As Dr. Faust said, accumulation needs to be focused on investments. That's fine. There's no problem with that. But when you get into the retirement red zone, and that's why it's important once you're inside of 10 years away from your projected retirement date that you build this plan, because that's when the investment strategy starts to look a little different. It needs to be more conservative on the front end and more aggressive on the back end. And what do we mean by that? We're talking about the buckets. We're talking about where are you going to be drawing your income from. And I mentioned before the break, we want a consistent income.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of this. We don't want it bouncing around based on market volatility. So where the income is currently coming from has to come from a conservative investment.
I think we just draw another comparison to what people have gone through during the coronavirus. Think about the uncertainty that you have had around the source of your income in the past couple of months. Have you been worried about getting laid off? Have you been worried about losing your income or having a reduction in income? If you want to avoid that feeling that we know you didn't like at all, if you want to avoid that in retirement, you have to have a more dependable retirement. And there is a way to do that. There is a way to walk into retirement confidently knowing that the amount of money that you have to have on a required basis every month is coming into you on a guaranteed basis. It all comes back to how do you plan for that?
I think you used the phrase, we've used the phrase in the past, a safety first
Yes.
approach as
Yes.
opposed to a probability approach. And Dr. Faust's comments earlier in the show really very starkly point that out. He said, you're depending on luck if you use a probability based retirement strategy as opposed to a safety first retirement strategy where luck is really out of the equation. You're not dependent upon that fickle, mistress of the market, if you will, that could give you great returns like we saw last year. The market was up 30% last year. This year, not so much. It just kind of comes and goes. And so you can't really depend upon your retirement depending upon that kind of fickleness. You just can't. You've got to have those returns long term to get the inflation adjustments that you're looking for, things of that nature, but you can't use it to depend on your monthly income.
I don't think there's been a better time since I've been at GenWealth to take advantage of building this plan. The GenWealth Ready to Retire process is what we call it, and it is coming up with that required income and then building desired income around it and an investment strategy to produce it. And if you're 55 and older, right now it costs you nothing to undergo that process. It is a value. Our financial planning fee is normally from $500 to $1,500, depending on a person's net worth. So it could be up to a $1,500 value. We are waiving those fees through June 30th, only through June 30th. So you want to call or email and get an appointment on the schedule before the end of June. 501-653-7355 is the number to call to set an appointment. 501-653-7355, or you can send an email, info@getreadyforthefuture.com. And since we're on the World Wide Web, we'll tell you where our offices are so that you know location-wise where the closest GenWealth financial advisor is to you. We have offices in West Little Rock, Hot Springs, Bryant, Conway, El Dorado, and Bossier City, Louisiana. So the chances are on radio, I used to always say that, if the chances are of you hearing my voice, there's an advisor near you. May not be if you're listening in Tokyo right now. So you'll want to know where those offices are. Again, 501-653-7355. So That's more dependable. Another thing that we want to talk about is that your plan should be more prepared. You know, I was really struck by our interview with Bert White on last week's webinar. We bring him in. He's the Chief Investment Officer of LPL Financial. He's talking great about investments, but he had great things to say about the planning process as well. And one of the things that stood out to me was he talked about you have to plan for the worst case scenario. You're not always, we want to plan for the good things. And we've talked about the good things, what it's going to take to pay the bills, what it's going to take to go on vacation. But you've got to prepare against what could blow up those good things.
Yeah, I think that's why we do the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. It is way more than just investments and retirement income planning. We're talking about how to manage your debt into retirement as you prepare for retirement and into retirement. If you have a plan to eliminate debt as you get into retirement, then you are better prepared for bad times to come because there's not this weight on you from a debt standpoint. And Janet, I think about, as I mentioned on the webinar, I think about the client that I took a phone call from last week who was in the midst of his wife passing away.
Yeah.
And the only thing on his mind to talk to us about was, what do I do? What do I do with our investments? What do I do with our accounts?
It's the very practical application of, this is real, this is happening, now what?
Yeah, and we were very prepared. We sat down early on when they became clients and put together a plan that was ready for this worst case scenario. And I can't think of a worst case scenario than losing a spouse. And this plan was prepared for that.
Do you guys remember, I don't know, a couple of years ago or so, we had an aging app, for the phone. You take a picture of yourself, and then it would give you wrinkles and gray hair, and some of us already started with such, and it added more.
I just knew
and,
that was coming when we
those
started
types of
down that
things.
road.
Anyway, the point was, we cannot see ourselves in the future. For whatever reason, we are incapable of seeing us, our own personal selves, of being older than we are, and we're incapable of seeing our own death. We're incapable of seeing illness, that type of thing. We just can't picture it. So when you think about things like being more prepared, one of the worst case scenarios is needing care. Before you pass away, it's needing care. You've got to be prepared for that. The reality is, somebody who has needed care. Here's the question. Why couldn't it be you? Have you thought about that? We don't think about ourselves in that way, but if it can happen to somebody else, it can happen to us. So you've got to be prepared to be able to handle that. And I'll say that, the industry has changed a lot over the years. I don't think we have time to really develop this in this segment, but the industry has improved a great deal in the offerings that they can provide to you to help you be prepared for needs to care for yourself. It can be at home. It doesn't have to be in a nursing home. I think that's one of the things that terrifies people the most, is losing that ability to be at home, to be independent. So really, these policies now are built to help you maintain your independence. So it's not something that everybody needs, but I do think that it's something that everybody needs to talk about and have an intentional conversation to make a decision on.
No one wants to go to a nursing home. You need to have a plan to stay out of the nursing home, as opposed to, long-term care insurance is not nursing home insurance. It is insurance to help you stay out of the nursing home.
And always important to say, Medicare is not the solution there.
That's
it does
right.
not
That's
pay
right.
for
That's
long-term
right.
care. And
Absolutely.
Medicaid will pay, but you have to ask yourself, is that what you want in
Yes.
retirement? And you have to have a big-time spin down of your own assets before that coverage kicks in. We'll develop that out a little bit more. Time for our final break. The Get Ready for the Future show continues right after this.
The beauty of a potter's work is that each item is unique. No piece is the same. That's what makes it art. At Gen Wealth, we believe your financial plan should be unique to you. Through our process, your money is carefully shaped around your goals and dreams. Your future, artfully crafted. Call us today or visit our website and connect with us. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors.
There's always been power in standing up for what you believe in, challenging the status quo, and never accepting the ordinary. What about the rest of your life? Will you settle? Or will your retirement be more? More fun, more family than finances, more than just investments. Connect with us at GenWealth and harness the power of more.
Education-driven, strategy-based, team-delivered. That's how we roll on the Get Ready for the Future show, and we're back for more.
Your retirement should be more dependable. We talked about that today, and it should be more prepared, preparing for the worst things that can happen so that they don't blow up your retirement income if they do happen. In our final segment, we're going to talk about how your retirement should be more purposeful and more wise. All of these mores are in a book that John and Janet wrote called Your Retirement Should Be More, and we're going to give away 5 copies to that book or of that book right now. And here's how you do it. All you have to do is get on our Facebook page and send us a message. Send us a message on Facebook saying, I want the book, Your Retirement Should Be More. Tell us how to get it to you. We'll do that for you. So a great opportunity there to have a really easy read, I should point out, too. I always say this when I tell people about this. The first thing I do when I get a new book is I go to the end and say, how many pages have I got to deal with, right? Not that I don't like to read. It's only 118 pages. That's a quick read, double space, pictures.
There you go.
Fun read, too. It is not industry jargon either. I want to point that out. It is very relatable to your life.
Look, if Janet and I wrote it, it's certainly an easy read.
It's simple, that's for sure. So on Facebook, just look for GenWealth Financial Advisors and message us there. That's all you need to do.
All right, so more purposeful. And this is one that I think maybe is the easiest one to fall through the cracks when it comes to a financial advisor's role in someone's retirement. Do you really have an advisor that talks to you about purpose? And this is so important that really has very little to do with income, has probably nothing to do with investments, but it is so important to the success of your retirement.
I have a very personal story on this one. It's just very special to me. I have a client whom I was blessed to know early in my career, and he talked to me then while he was still working about the importance of men in particular understanding that they have a purpose in retirement, because so many men identify themselves by their job. But who are you when you retire? You don't say, I'm a retired career X, whatever it was. You're just John, or you're just Scott, and you don't tell people anything else. So who really are you at that point? And he talked about he would take people on mission trips, men, just to let them know, look, this may not be your purpose, but you have one. And then as the years passed, it got to the point where it was time for him to retire. And he began to really seriously pray about, all right, what's my purpose? What does this look like? And he shared with me several times, there's a verse that he considers his retirement life verse, if you will. And it's Psalms 92:14. He says, they shall still bear fruit in old age. They shall be fresh and flourishing. And his point,
fresh and flourishing.
Yeah,
nobody thinks about that as far as their retirement is concerned.
Right. Well, and it's not. And I even want to separate this from what we talk about retirement. That's your income. That's your investments. All of that. This is purpose. And if you're going to enjoy retirement, you have to have a purpose. Now, that purpose may be still working even for an income. You may do what we call work-tirement, where you work part of the time and you're not working full time like you used to, but you're still having some level of income. But whatever the purpose is, as I say to my son, if you have oxygen in your lungs, you have purpose. God has left you here for a reason, and you have purpose. And so, for him, it's, boy, you're 17, you better find something that has purpose, But when you're retired, I think really for everybody, but especially for men, you have to understand that as long as you're here, you have something to give to other people. You do have a purpose in being here.
Scott, I call it your why. It's why you continue. And you know, we all got a good dose of this when the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden you were stuck at home and you were trying to work from home to some degree, but you also were spending a lot of time just being, and wondering, why am I here, and what is it that I need to be doing, and I think that, you know, this was kind of a trial run for some folks as far as retirement is concerned, because you think about being at home all the time and think about how disconnected you felt being at home away from your work. That's something you've got to say, okay, I've got to fill that void somehow in retirement. It is your why. Why am I still here? What purpose do I fill?
I think we've all begun to get tired of scrolling through our Facebook feeds and binge watching TV shows. I mean, there's an end to that, right?
Yes,
so there has
is.
to be a purpose beyond that, because when you think about how long this has lasted so far, it's been a few weeks. You're talking about potentially 25 to 30 years of a retirement. Especially if you're healthy, you could really fulfill that purpose if you have it defined. So the final one for us is more wise. And this one, I guess I would pose as a question for you. Where do you get your wisdom about your finances? Is it just in your head? Is it from your friends or family? Is it around the water cooler at work? Is it from the financial gurus on TV, the so-called gurus on TV who are peddling fear, let's be honest?
Yep.
Or is it from a trusted advisor? And where should it be?
Well, I think first thing that you've got to think about is who's acting in my best interest. There's a word in our industry called fiduciary, and that word gets thrown around a lot. But basically, it says that I'm setting my interest aside and I'm solely looking at you and your situation and what is in your best interest in your situation based on the knowledge that I have about the subject. That's what a fiduciary does. And so I think the number one thing that you've got to do is you've got to be in a position where you have a relationship with a fiduciary. Let me explain something to you if you don't know this. Jim Cramer on CNBC is not your fiduciary.
Truth.
He absolutely has no knowledge or interest in your situation. Jim Cramer has an interest in basically stoking the fire to get you to watch his program so his ratings stay as high as they are.
Yeah.
That is what his interest is. A financial advisor can have your best interest at heart, or they could be just trying to sell you something. If your plan is not if your relationship with your financial advisor is not plan-based, then it's likely transaction-based. And if it's transaction-based, then that is the attitude or the approach that advisor is taking. Now, there are transactions that have to be done in anybody's financial plan, but it really is, what is the priority? What comes first? And if it's not a strategy first, planning first, methodology of working, then you have to question, is it in my best interest?
I'll give you a very clear example. I would say that the product that people come in most emotionally either for or against is an annuity. And there are people who are 100% I want one, and there are people who are 100% I do not want one under any circumstances. And we just go, okay, let's talk, because we don't know when you walk in whether you're going to need one or not. And then what we found so many times is we go through this planning process and we get to the point of, okay, how much income do you have to have? And you tell us the number. And if, let's say it's $4,000, and between pensions and Social Security, you have $5,000 coming in, and we go, you don't need an annuity. You know, because you've got guaranteed income coming in that's going to cover that. It's mathematical. It's based on the plan. And we've had people who've had us tell them they don't need one, and they go, but I want one. You know, it's formulaic. You don't have to have one. And then we've had other people where we say, look, you really need to have this because a 2008 is going to happen. Coronavirus is going to happen, and the investments are going to go down. You have to have a guarantee in place. If they're, for example, if their required income was $4,000 a month and they only had $3,000 coming in from guaranteed sources, then there's a gap there. They've got to have that. So all of that to say, as fiduciaries, we're just looking at the math of this and saying the plan says you need this because you told me you needed $4,000 a month guaranteed. That's all there is to it. If your advisor can't go back to a plan to answer why you have something, they're not a fiduciary.
It's our why.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
our one.
It is.
That's
It
right.
absolutely is. I would contend that it is a violation of fiduciary responsibility to tell someone who needs an annuity that they shouldn't have one, just like it is to tell someone that they need an annuity when they don't need
Exactly.
Or if they want to put every penny they have into an annuity.
Yes,
We've
we've seen that too.
one. Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't make any sense any more than not putting any money in one for someone who needs guaranteed income.
So the real part of this, when you figure out how do you determine if you have a trusted advisor, is to bring a list of questions to that meeting. And we want you to interview us, put us to the test. Ask us how many clients our firm has actually helped retire. How many clients are like you? Will you provide me with a written comprehensive plan for my retirement? And I can answer that one for you. Yes, we will. And as the final bell has sounded, we're going to wrap it up by telling you, if you're 55 and older, how you can get a comprehensive written financial plan for your retirement at no cost. The reason we're doing this through June 30th only is because we know that folks have tightened their financial belts during this pandemic, and we don't want the cost to be an obstacle to people who are closing in on retirement being able to get there with a written comprehensive plan that is unique to them, that is custom built for them. This is a value of between $500 and $1,500 based on your net worth. We are waiving our fees through June 30th to be able to provide a comprehensive written plan for you at no cost. To get it, 501-653-7355. 501-653-7355. Final thoughts.
Scott, I think that my final thought is that the GenWealth difference is really just all about education, strategy, and teamwork. If those things work for you, then the GenWealth Ready to Retire process will work for you. We educate our clients. We help them to understand what's going on in their plan. We have a strategy, and we have a team to back that up. Janet?
And if you would like for your retirement to be more, that's what we've been talking about all day today. Again, all you have to do is message us on Facebook, and we will send you a copy of our book, Your Retirement Should Be More. Just look for GenWealth Financial Advisors on Facebook and send us a message.
We mentioned those chapters as we head out. More personal, more dependable, as we talked about today, more strategic, more certain, more prepared, as we talked about, more purposeful, more confident, more wise. And lastly, are you ready for more? We certainly hope that you are and take advantage of these offers that we have for you. That's going to do it for today's Get Ready for the Future show. We thank you for being with us online and on the radio. We'll talk to you again next week.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 501-653-7355. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. GenWealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas-registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.